Heartbreak, Nia Benette discovered, had excellent manners. It did not kick indoors, it did not scream across crowded rooms, it did not knock champagne glasses from silver trays or interrupt jazz quartets or make beautiful women in expensive dresses fall dramatically to their knees beneath crystal chandeliers. No, Heartbreak arrived quietly. It took a seat beside her. It crossed its legs, and then it smiled while everyone else celebrated. Nia stood near the edge of the ballroom with a half-full glass of champagne she had not taken a single sip from. The bubbles rose prettily inside the flute, bright and restless, floating toward the surface like they had somewhere to be. Unlike her, she had been standing in the same spot for nearly 12 minutes, not hiding, observing. That was what she told herself. Nia Benette did not hide at family events. She appeared, she smiled, she hugged relatives who smelled like perfume and church mints, and she answered the same three questions in rotation. Yes, work was going well. No, she was not seeing anyone. Yes, she was eating enough. Then she found a corner with decent lighting and waited for the event to become socially acceptable to leave. Tonight, unfortunately, leaving early was not an option. Her little sister was engaged. The ballroom at the Fontaine Hotel had been transformed into something out of a bridal magazine. Ivory roses spilled from tall glass vases. Gold votive candles flickered across every table. A soft cream and champagne color palette warmed the room beneath the glow of crystal chandeliers. The jazz quartet near the small stage played a smooth version of an old love song Nia recognized but could not name. Everything looked tasteful, elegant, expensive, very Lena. Her younger sister had always possessed the unnerving ability to make life arrange itself prettily around her. Nia! Her mother's voice cut across the room with the precision of a thrown slipper. Nia turned. Denise Bennet moved through the crowd in a mauve dress and pearls, her smile bright enough for strangers, her eyes sharp enough for daughters. Why are you standing over here by yourself? I'm not by myself, Nia said. I'm with the ficus. Her mother did not laugh. The ficus, in Nia's opinion, seemed supportive. You know what I mean, Denise said, lowering her voice. Go mingle. I mingled. You spoke to cousin Renee for 4 minutes. 5, she updated me on her knee replacement and her neighbor's divorce. It was a full social exchange. Nia. There it was. The warning tone. Nia smiled because she had been trained by generations of Southern women to understand that a smile could mean many things, including, please don't start with me in public. I'm fine, Mama. You work too much. I know. You always say you know, but you don't do anything different. I came to the party. That is not a personality. It's a start. Her mother sighed in that particular way mothers did when they loved you, but also wanted to shake you a little. Lena is over there. Go take pictures with your sister before she starts pouting. Nia glanced toward the far side of the ballroom. She saw Lena immediately. Of course she did. Lena Bennet was impossible to miss. She stood beneath an arch of cream roses and gold ribbon, laughing with her head tilted back, one hand pressed dramatically against her chest. Her dress was soft blush silk, fitted at the waist and floating around her knees. Her curls were pinned loosely, her makeup glowing, her engagement ring flashing each time she moved her hand. She looked radiant. She looked happy. She looked loved. Nia felt the expected warmth rise in her chest. Then she saw the man standing beside Lena, and the warmth vanished. Marcus Hale. For one strange second, Nia's mind refused to arrange the picture correctly. Marcus was there. Marcus was smiling. Marcus's arm was around Lena's waist. Lena leaned into him as if she belonged there, as if she had belonged there for a while. Nia blinked. The room continued without her permission. The jazz played. The candles flickered. Someone laughed too loudly near the bar. Marcus lowered his head and kissed Lena's temple. Nia's fingers tightened around the champagne flute. No. Not because she had any claim on him. She didn't. That was the ridiculous part. Nia had no claim. No history, no confession, no late-night almost kiss. No unfinished conversation waiting in the wings. She had memories, private ones, small ones. Sophomore year. Marcus Hale sitting 2 rows ahead of her in behavioral economics, turning around to ask if she had a spare pen. Junior year. Marcus walking beside her after a student leadership meeting because it had started raining and she had forgotten her umbrella. Senior year. Marcus calling her brilliant after she corrected a guest lecturer's math in front of the entire class. Tiny moments, harmless moments, moments she had stored carefully in the hidden drawer of her heart and mistaken for destiny. And now he was standing across the room with his arm around her little sister. Nia felt something inside her sit down. Not collapse. That would have been too dramatic, not shatter. That would have made noise. Whatever lived inside her simply sat down on the floor, folded its hands, and decided it was too tired to continue. Nia? Her mother asked. Nia realized Denise was watching her. She adjusted her face. That was the only way to describe it. She pulled the smile back into place like smoothing a sheet over an unmade bed. I'm going. Denise softened. Good. Your sister wants you close tonight. Of course she did. Lena always wanted Nia close when she was happy. It had never occurred to her that closeness could hurt. Nia crossed the ballroom slowly, moving through clusters of relatives, friends, co-workers, and people she did not recognize. Her heels pressed into the patterned carpet. Her champagne glass remained untouched. Marcus saw her first. His smile widened. Nia. The sound of her name and his voice was a problem. It had always been a problem. Back in college, Marcus had said her name like he was pleasantly surprised by it, like she had walked into the room and improved the lighting. She had been young enough then to build entire futures out of tone. Now that same warmth landed against her chest like a bruise. Lena turned. Nia! Her sister rushed forward and wrapped both arms around her. Nia hugged her back automatically. Lena smelled like vanilla, peonies, and expensive happiness. You came, Lena said, squeezing her. I was scared you'd get stuck at work. I wouldn't miss this. The lie was smooth. Too smooth. Nia almost admired it. Lena pulled back, still holding both of Nia's hands. Can you believe it? Nia looked at her sister's glowing face, then at Marcus, then at the ring. No, she could not believe it. But Lena's joy was so open, so unguarded, so completely unaware of the knife she had accidentally placed between Nia's ribs, that Nia could not make herself bleed in front of her. So she smiled. I'm happy for you. Lena made a sound halfway between a squeal and a sob. I knew you would be. That almost broke her, because Lena did know, or thought she did. Nia had always been happy for her little sister. When Lena won school pageants, when Lena got the softer punishments, when Lena borrowed Nia's clothes and returned them 3 weeks later with lipstick on the collar, when Lena cried over boys and Nia sat beside her with ice cream and outrage, when Lena needed rescuing, when Lena needed defending, when Lena needed reminding that the world did not end because one person failed to choose her. Nia had always been happy for Lena. That did not mean happiness had never cost her anything. Marcus stepped closer. Nia, it's really good to see you. You too, Marcus. He looked exactly as she remembered, and not at all like she needed him to. His hair was trimmed close on the sides, his smile easy, his suit well-fitted but relaxed. He had that golden boy energy that made people feel included even when he was doing nothing special. I know this probably feels sudden, he said. Nia's eyebrows lifted before she could stop them. Sudden. Interesting word. Lena laughed, looping her arm through Marcus's. It was fast, but when you know, you know. Nia's smile did something painful at the edges. When did you two? She stopped before the question fully formed. When did you two start? When did he become yours? When did everyone find out except me? Marcus glanced at Lena. About 8 months ago. 8 months. Nia's stomach dropped quietly. 8 months was not a secret accidentally misplaced. 8 months had seasons in it. Birthdays, family dinners, text messages, inside jokes. 8 months had chosen silence. Lena winced slightly. I wanted to tell you, but you were so busy with the leadership program and the promotion track and then that conference in Seattle, and you didn't want to say it over the phone, Nia finished for her. Relief flashed across Lena's face. Yes, exactly. Nia nodded. Of course, that explanation was convenient enough for everyone to step around. Work has been busy, Nia said. Marcus's smile softened. You always were driven. There was admiration in his voice. Once Nia would have tucked it away and lived on it for days. Tonight, it sounded like a polite eulogy for the woman he had never truly known. Lena grabbed Nia's hand again. Come on, pictures? Mama is already threatening people. Nia let herself be pulled beneath the floral arch. The photographer arranged them in groups. Bride and groom, bride with parents, groom with parents, bride with sister, bride, groom, sister. Nia stood beside Lena while Marcus stood on Lena's other side, one hand on her waist. Closer, the photographer said cheerfully. Nia moved closer. Beautiful. Big smiles. Nia smiled. Flash. Perfect. Nothing about it was perfect. The party moved forward, speeches began, toasts followed. Nia learned things she had not wanted to know. Marcus had proposed on a rooftop at sunset. There had been candles. A violinist. Lena had cried before he even opened the ring box. Marcus had asked her parents for their blessing. Nia's father had apparently cried too. Nia smiled through all of it. She clapped at the appropriate times. She hugged older relatives. She accepted compliments on her dress. She told 3 different people that work was going well. Then dinner began, and life, which had already been unkind, became petty. Her place card sat 2 seats away from Marcus. Of course. Nia stared at it for half a second too long. Nia, you're here, Lena said brightly from the seat beside Marcus. I wanted you close. Close, that word again. Nia sat. A man she did not know took the seat on her left. The seat on her right remained empty. Small mercy. The first course arrived. Nia picked up her fork, then set it down. Her appetite had left the premises. At the head table, Lena leaned against Marcus while telling their proposal story again to a different group of people. Nia looked at her plate and tried very hard not to hate anyone. That was the thing no one told you about being hurt by people you loved. Sometimes there was no villain. Sometimes no one had meant to wound you. Sometimes the knife had been dropped by accident. You were still the one bleeding. A chair pulled out beside her. Nia glanced up. Terry Kang sat down like he had been expected there all along. Her pulse gave a small, confused jump. Up close, he looked even more impossible than he did from across the room. Not pretty, not flashy. Impeccable. That was the word. His black suit fit with quiet precision. His dark hair was neatly styled. His face held the kind of calm confidence that came from old money, excellent tailoring, and probably at least 3 lawyers on speed dial. He had sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and eyes that seemed to notice too much while giving away very little. He placed his napkin across his lap and looked at her. Nia Benette. She blinked. Terry Kang? His mouth curved. You know me. Everyone knows you. That sounds ominous. It was meant to. He smiled a little wider. For reasons Nia did not appreciate, the smile made him look less like a billionaire heir and more like trouble with excellent manners. I hope I'm not stealing someone's seat, he said. Are you? No. Then why ask? Because it sounded polite. You always say things you don't mean? Only at engagement parties. Nia stared at him. Then, despite herself, she laughed. It was small. Barely there, but real. Terry's expression softened so quickly she almost missed it. Across the table, someone began tapping a spoon against a glass. Another toast. Nia braced herself. The man standing was one of Marcus's friends from college. He was already emotional and only halfway through his champagne. I've known Marcus since freshman year, he began, and I have never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at Lena. The table sighed. Nia reached for her water. Terry leaned slightly toward her. Would it be inappropriate to fake a fire alarm? Water nearly went down the wrong way. Nia covered her mouth with her napkin. Terry continued facing forward, expression perfectly composed. I'm only asking for emergency preparedness purposes. She lowered her voice. Jim, you're terrible. I've been told I'm an asset in difficult situations. This is your idea of helping? You didn't cry. Nia went still. The humor faded. Terry did not look at her. He kept his gaze politely forward as if he had not just reached beneath the table and touched the truest part of the night. Nia swallowed. I wasn't going to cry. Of course not. His tone was gentle. Too gentle. That was worse. The toast continued. Marcus laughed at something. Lena leaned against him. The ring flashed again. Nia looked down. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap. Too tightly. Her knuckles had begun to ache. She loosened them. Then Marcus looked over. Nia? Her head lifted. He was watching her with concern. Kindness. That familiar, devastating kindness. You okay? The question struck her in the exact place she had been protecting. For a second, the room blurred. Not with tears. She refused to cry. Not here. Not at her sister's engagement party. Not in front of Marcus. Not because of a love story she had never actually been brave enough to begin. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Under the table, warm fingers brushed hers. Nia froze. Terry's hand rested beside hers, palm up against the white linen. He did not look at her. He did not make a show of it. He simply offered his hand like a railing at the edge of a staircase, something to hold before the fall. Nia stared at his hand. Large, warm, steady, patient, waiting. She should not take it. She barely knew him. He was Marcus's friend. He was a billionaire heir. He was sitting beside her at the worst table in the room, making inappropriate fire alarm jokes and noticing far too much. She should not take his hand. But then Lena laughed. Marcus smiled, and Nia felt the room shift beneath her again. So she placed her hand in Terry's. His fingers closed around hers gently. Not possessive, not romantic, not yet. Just steady. The touch anchored her. The ballroom sharpened again. The candles came back into focus. The music softened around the edges. Marcus was still waiting. Nia breathed in through her nose. Then she smiled. I'm fine. The lie sounded believable. Terry's thumb brushed once across her knuckles. A small, silent correction. No, you're not. But I've got you. Nia looked straight ahead, her hand hidden safely inside his beneath the table. For the rest of the toast, she did not let go, and neither did he. 3 days after the engagement party, Nia Benette was still irritated. Not heartbroken, not devastated, not crying into a pint of ice cream while listening to sad songs. Irritated. Heartbreak sounded dramatic. Irritation sounded practical, and Nia preferred practical. Unfortunately, her heart appeared unwilling to cooperate. She sat in a conference room on the 22nd floor of Bennett Strategic Consulting, staring at a PowerPoint presentation she had personally approved and somehow absorbing none of it. A dozen executives discussed market projections. Someone was talking about acquisition opportunities. Someone else was talking about expansion costs. The numbers floated across the screen. Nia usually loved numbers. Numbers behaved. People did not. Especially people who got engaged to your sister without telling you. Nia, she blinked. Every head in the room turned toward her. Wonderful. Her favorite activity. Being caught not paying attention. The junior vice president nearest the screen cleared his throat. We were asking if you agreed with the revised recommendation. Nia looked at the slide. Fortunately, years of experience had taught her how to appear brilliant while buying time. She leaned forward. What assumptions were used to calculate the third quarter forecasts? The room immediately turned toward the presenter. Questions began flying. Nobody remembered she had briefly drifted into another dimension. Crisis averted. Nia made a note she didn't need, then another, then another. Anything to avoid thinking. The meeting finally ended nearly an hour later. By the time she returned to her office, she had accumulated 47 unread emails, 2 voicemails, and 1 headache. She dropped into her chair. Silence greeted her. The office overlooked downtown Atlanta, all glass and sunlight and distant traffic. It was the kind of office she dreamed about in college. Corner suite, executive title, respect, influence, success. Everything she'd wanted. Everything she'd worked for. Everything that was apparently supposed to make loneliness impossible. Nia sighed. Her phone buzzed. A text message appeared. From Lena. Lena, dinner Sunday? Mom says family attendance is mandatory. Nia, is that an official policy? Lena, she's drafting paperwork now. Nia smiled despite herself. A second message appeared. Lena, Marcus says hi. The smile vanished. Nia stared at the screen, then tossed the phone onto her desk like it had personally offended her. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Come in. Her assistant stepped inside. There was a delivery. Nia frowned. I didn't order anything. The assistant handed over a small white box. No company logo. No sender information. Just her name. Curiosity replaced annoyance. She opened the lid. Inside sat a single chocolate croissant. Still warm. And a folded card. Nia unfolded it. The handwriting was neat and annoyingly attractive. You looked like someone who forgot breakfast. Nia stared, then laughed. A real laugh. Short, unexpected, dangerous. Because she knew exactly who T was. And because he was right. She had forgotten breakfast. Again. Terry Kang regretted nothing. His assistant, however, appeared concerned. You sent a pastry? I did. To a woman. Yes. His assistant blinked. The poor man looked genuinely bewildered. Terry couldn't blame him. Most of Terry's life involved billion-dollar negotiations, board meetings, acquisitions, and family obligations. Not pastries. Definitely not pastries. Yet here they were. His assistant carefully placed a folder on the desk. Sir. Are you courting someone? Terry looked up. Courting? The word sounded like it belonged in a Jane Austen novel. His assistant remained serious. A pastry was delivered. It was breakfast. It was a croissant. Breakfast can be flaky. The assistant looked tired. Terry understood. He was being impossible on purpose. Mostly because it amused him. Partly because thinking about Nia smiling over a chocolate croissant had improved his entire morning. His phone buzzed. A message appeared. Unknown to everyone else. Immediately recognizable to him. Nia. The pastry was bribery. Terry smiled. Terry. Did it work? The response arrived instantly. Nia. Possibly. Terry. Excellent. Nia. Are you always this confident? Terry. No. Nia. Liar. Terry. Fair? He waited. Then. Nia. Thank you. The smile stayed with him for the rest of the day. By Friday evening, Nia had almost convinced herself that Terry Kang was simply a nice man. A very rich man. A very attractive man. An unexpectedly funny man, but simply a nice man. Then he called. Hello? Nia Benette. She rolled her eyes immediately. Terry Kang? His voice carried amusement. You recognize me. You sent carbohydrates. A memorable gesture. What do you want? Coffee. Nia laughed. What? Coffee. You called me to say one word? I had a second word prepared. What was it? Please. That earned another laugh. Terry seemed determined to collect those. I'm busy. No, you're not. I might be. It's Friday. So? You're working. How do you know? I've met you. Nia hated how accurate that was. What if I have plans? Do you? She opened her mouth, closed it. Terry laughed softly. That's what I thought. You are unbelievably annoying. I've been told. Repeatedly, I assume. Mostly by you. Nia smiled. The dangerous thing was how easy this felt. No pressure, no expectations, no awkward sympathy. Just conversation, just laughter. Just someone who somehow made the end of a difficult week feel lighter. Coffee? He asked again. She looked out her office window. The city glowed beneath the setting sun. People hurried home. The week was ending. For the first time in months, she didn't particularly want to spend the evening alone. One coffee. Excellent. One. I heard you. You sound suspicious. I sound victorious. That's the suspicious part. His laugh warmed something inside her, something she'd been trying very hard not to examine. 7 o'clock, Terry said. Where? The cafe on Peachtree. The expensive one? Do you know another one? No. Then we're in agreement. Terry? Yes? You realize people are going to think this is a date. There was a brief pause. Not long. Just long enough. Then Terry answered. Coffee. Nothing more, nothing less. The simplicity of it settled something inside her. No pressure, no expectations, no hidden agenda, just coffee. At least that's what Nia told herself. At exactly 7 o'clock, Nia stepped into the cafe. Warm light spilled across polished wood floors. Soft jazz drifted from hidden speakers, the scent of roasted coffee wrapped around her like a blanket. And there he was. Terry stood when he saw her, a simple gesture, old-fashioned, unexpected. The dark charcoal sweater he wore made him look less like a billionaire and more like a man who happened to have excellent shoulders. Dangerous observation. Nia immediately ignored it. You came. You sound surprised. I had contingency plans. She narrowed her eyes. You had backup plans in case I canceled? Several. That's ridiculous. I like being prepared. You run multinational corporations. Exactly, Nia laughed again. Terry looked entirely too pleased with himself. They ordered coffee, found a table near the window, and talked. Not about Marcus, not about Lena, not about heartbreak. Instead, they talked about terrible college apartments, awful professors, embarrassing internships, the strange things wealthy people bought, the stranger things corporate executives said when they thought nobody important was listening. Hours passed. Neither noticed. At one point, Nia laughed so hard she nearly spilled her drink. At another point, Terry admitted he had once accidentally locked himself out of a penthouse while taking out trash. The image was absurd, wonderful, human. When she finally checked the time, nearly 2 hours had disappeared. Nia blinked. How is it 9:30? Terry looked at his watch. That's concerning. Why? We've apparently fallen victim to time. She laughed again. The sound echoed softly between them. For a moment, neither spoke. The cafe lights reflected in the windows. Outside, Atlanta shimmered beneath the night sky. Inside, something shifted. Not dramatically, not enough to notice if she wasn't paying attention. But enough. Enough that Nia realized this was the longest she'd gone without thinking about Marcus since the engagement party. Enough that she realized she'd spent 2 hours smiling. Enough that she realized Terry Kang had somehow managed to make her forget she was supposed to be sad. The realization startled her, because she wasn't ready to ask herself why. Terry stood when she gathered her purse. I'll walk you to your car. You don't have to. I know. The answer was simple, matter of fact, and strangely sweet. Together they stepped out into the warm evening air. The city hummed around them. Traffic lights glowed red and gold. A light breeze lifted the edge of Nia's hair. When they reached her car, she turned toward him. Thank you. For coffee? For not making tonight weird? Something softened in Terry's expression. It was just coffee. Nia smiled. Right. Right. Neither moved immediately. A strange moment stretched between them. Comfortable, easy, unexpected. Then Terry stepped back. Drive safe. You too. Nia slid into her car. As she pulled away, she glanced once in the rearview mirror. Terry was still standing on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, watching to make sure she got onto the road safely. The sight did something unfamiliar to her chest. Something warm. Something small. Something she firmly refused to investigate. At least, not tonight. Tonight, it had only been coffee. And that was exactly how she intended to keep it. If Nia Benette had been forced to identify the exact moment Terry Kang became a habit, she would not have been able to do it. The transition happened quietly. One coffee became two. Two became occasional text messages. Occasional text messages became conversations. Conversations became part of her day. The frightening thing was that Terry never pushed. He never demanded her time. Never complained when she worked late. Never acted offended when she disappeared into a 70-hour work week. He simply appeared. Steady, consistent, like sunrise. 3 months after the engagement party, Nia sat in her favorite corner booth at a downtown cafe waiting for him. The realization struck halfway through her second sip of coffee. She was waiting for him, not meeting him, not coincidentally arriving at the same place. Waiting. Nia immediately decided she didn't like that realization. At all. The bell above the cafe door jingled. Terry walked inside and smiled when he spotted her. The smile was becoming a problem. Not because it was charming. It absolutely was. Not because it made him unfairly handsome. It definitely did. The problem was that Nia found herself smiling back before she could stop herself. You're late. Terry glanced at his watch. I am 37 seconds late. Late is late. I should have known I'd be held to impossible standards. You survived. Barely. He slid into the booth across from her. The waitress appeared almost immediately. Nia was suspicious. Very suspicious. Terry? Yes? Do they know your order already? The waitress answered before he could. The usual, Mr. Kang? Terry smiled. Please. The waitress disappeared. Nia pointed at him. That's ridiculous. I come here occasionally. Occasionally? The waitress called from behind the counter. 3 times a week. Traitor. Terry looked mildly betrayed. Nia laughed. The waitress grinned. Justice had been served. An hour later, Nia was reviewing presentation notes while Terry worked through emails on his tablet. Comfortable silence filled the booth. The kind of silence most people underestimated. The kind that only happened when two people genuinely enjoyed each other's company. Nia highlighted a paragraph, then another, then another. Terry glanced up. You still do that? She frowned. Do what? The color coding. Nia looked down. Yellow, blue, pink, 3 highlighters. She blinked. What? Terry returned his attention to the tablet. You always color code things. A strange sensation prickled across the back of her neck. How would you know that? The question seemed innocent enough. Terry's expression immediately became guilty. Very guilty. Suspiciously guilty. The kind of guilty usually reserved for people caught hiding evidence. Nia lowered her highlighter. Terry? How would you know that? He took a sip of coffee, buying time, definitely buying time. Nia narrowed her eyes. Terry. He sighed, slowly, like a man accepting his fate. You did it in college. The answer landed quietly. Nia stared. What? You color-coded your notes. You noticed that? Terry appeared to realize there was no escape. I noticed a lot of things. The statement settled between them. Small, simple, dangerous. Nia sat back. A memory surfaced. The student union. Long tables, laptops, study groups, late nights. She had spent years there, most of them with her head buried in textbooks, most of them convinced nobody paid attention to her. Certainly not Terry Kang. Back then, Terry had seemed larger than life, the wealthy fraternity president, the campus golden boy, the business student everyone knew, the guy whose future appeared mapped out before graduation. Their worlds had never overlapped. Or so she'd thought. You noticed my highlighters? Yes. Nia blinked. Why? Terry looked amused. Because fluorescent pink is difficult to ignore. Fair? He relaxed slightly. Mistake. Now she was curious. Curiosity was dangerous. You said you noticed a lot of things. I did. What things? His expression immediately became cautious, which only encouraged her. Terry. No. Terry. Nia. What things? He sighed again, this time dramatically. As your attorney, I advise against this line of questioning. You're not an attorney. No, but I can afford several. Nia laughed, then pointed. Answer the question. Terry rubbed the bridge of his nose. The gesture made him look unexpectedly human. Not billionaire human, actual human. Fine. Victory. Nia sat back, waiting. Terry looked entirely too resigned. You always sat near windows. Her smile faded slightly. What? The student union. Terry shrugged. You preferred window seats. Nia blinked. That was oddly specific. You remember where I sat? Apparently. That's weird. Probably. You admit it's weird? Very. Nia laughed. Terry looked relieved. Then she asked, What else? His relief vanished. Immediately. What else? Yes. You seem committed to making this uncomfortable. You started it. No, technically you did. Terry. He pointed at her notebook. You tapped your pen when thinking. Nia stared. What? You still do. Her gaze dropped. The pen in her hand rested against the notebook. She had been tapping it. Without realizing. Slowly, thoughtfully, exactly the way she always had. A tiny chill ran through her. Not fear, awareness. You noticed that? Yes. The answer came softly, without humor, without teasing, just truth. Something shifted. Not in the conversation, inside her. Because these weren't observations someone made accidentally. These weren't things people remembered years later because they happened to be nearby. These were details, patterns, habits, the kind of things you noticed when you watch someone. Really watch them. Nia studied him. Terry. He looked up. How much attention were you paying to me? For the first time since she'd met him, Terry Kang appeared genuinely trapped. The sight was fascinating and strangely adorable. His jaw tightened slightly, a muscle moved in his cheek. He looked toward the window, then back at her, then toward the window again. Nia. The warning in his voice was immediate. Terry! The amusement in hers was worse. The corner of his mouth twitched. I refused to answer. That's an answer. No. Yes. No. Absolutely yes. Terry groaned. Actually groaned. Nia laughed so hard she nearly spilled her coffee. The sound drew several glances from nearby tables. She didn't care, because something wonderful had happened. For one entire minute, she had forgotten to be careful, forgotten to guard herself, forgotten to maintain control. She'd simply laughed, and Terry was smiling at her like that was his favorite thing in the world. The realization hit unexpectedly. Nia looked away first. That evening, Terry walked her to her car. The parking garage beneath the office complex echoed softly with distant footsteps and idling engines. They moved at an easy pace, no rush, no awkwardness, just conversation. And then he told the client that artificial intelligence couldn't replace human intuition. Terry nodded. Reasonable. He said it while presenting an artificial intelligence platform. Terry stopped walking. Nia continued 3 steps before noticing. She turned. What? He stared at her. Nia. Yes? I need you to understand that was the funniest thing you've said all week. She laughed. Again. Terry shook his head. I'd pay money to have witnessed that meeting. You have money. Exactly. You can't solve everything with money. No. The answer came quietly, instantly, without hesitation. Something about his tone made her look at him differently. For a second, neither spoke. The sounds of the parking garage seemed farther away, muted. The air shifted, subtle, but noticeable. Nia looked away first. Again, a troubling pattern. They reached her car, she unlocked it, then hesitated. Something had been bothering her all afternoon, something she couldn't quite shake. Terry? His gaze lifted. Hmm? She studied him, really studied him. The easy confidence, the warmth, the patience, the way he always seemed unsurprised by her, as if she'd never had to explain herself to him, as if he'd known her longer than their friendship justified. You knew who I was. The statement emerged quietly, not a question, a realization. Terry's expression softened. Of course I knew who you were. Nia's heartbeat stumbled. The answer was simple, matter of fact. Like the idea had never required explanation, as though knowing her had always been obvious, expected, natural. The silence stretched. Neither moved. Finally, Nia smiled. Small, tentative, uncertain. And Terry smiled back. Warm, steady, dangerous. Because for the first time since the engagement party, Nia found herself wondering something she hadn't allowed before. Not what she'd lost, but what she might have overlooked. The thought followed her all the way home. And across the city, sitting alone in the back seat of a town car, Terry stared out the window and thought about the look on her face. The realization. The question. The beginning of awareness. Then he closed his eyes briefly. Because he knew something Nia didn't. Something he'd spent years protecting. Something he'd promised himself he would never use to influence her. Nia Benette believed their story began at an engagement party. For Terry, it had started much earlier. Back when she sat beside a window with 3 highlighters and a future she was too busy chasing to notice the man watching her from across the room. And for the first time in years, Terry found himself wondering how much longer he could keep that secret. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday, not in Nia's heart, not in her composure, not even in the carefully preserved image she'd carried of Marcus Hale for nearly a decade. The crack appeared in a memory, and once it appeared, she couldn't stop seeing it. Nia sat at her desk reviewing quarterly reports when her phone vibrated. A group text. Family. The digital equivalent of chaos. Lena, dinner at our place Sunday. Marcus, you should come. Mom, she's coming. Dad, your mother has decided. Lena, bring dessert. Nia, so I don't actually have a vote? Mom, no, Nia smiled despite herself. A second message appeared. Marcus, still working too much? There it was. The familiar concern. The same concern that had once made her heart race, the same concern she'd spent years interpreting as evidence of something more. Nia stared at the screen. Then, unexpectedly, another memory surfaced. Senior year, campus coffee shop, Marcus asking if she was working too hard. Sophomore year, Marcus asking if she was getting enough sleep. Junior year, Marcus telling her she needed to take a break once in a while. At the time, she'd treated those moments like precious jewels, proof, signs, possibilities. But now, sitting in her office years later, something occurred to her. Marcus had asked everyone those questions. The realization landed gently. Not painfully, just honestly. Marcus wasn't flirting. Marcus was kind, there was a difference. Nia leaned back in her chair. For years, she'd mistaken kindness for intention. Not because Marcus had misled her, because she'd wanted to believe, because hope had quietly filled in blanks reality never actually provided. Her phone buzzed again. A new text, not the family group. Terry, important question. Nia smiled automatically. That alone should have concerned her. Nia, should I be worried? Terry, probably. Nia, wonderful. Terry, how strongly do you feel about miniature goats? Nia blinked, then laughed. alone, in her office like a lunatic. Nia, explain immediately. A picture appeared. Terry stood beside a tiny goat wearing a blue sweater. The goat looked pleased with itself. Nia laughed harder. Terry, corporate fundraiser. Nia, why is it dressed better than most executives? Terry, that's exactly what I said. Nia, did you pet it? Terry, obviously. Nia, good. Terry, you sound relieved. Nia, I was evaluating your character. Terry, and? Nia, the goat approves. The reply came immediately. Terry, excellent. That's the endorsement I've been seeking. Nia shook her head, still smiling. Then she paused, because something else had occurred to her. Marcus had occupied her thoughts for years. Terry had occupied them for less than 4 months. And somehow, Terry was winning, without trying. Sunday dinner arrived with all the subtlety of a marching band. The moment Nia entered Marcus and Lena's townhouse, her mother shoved a serving dish into her hands. Take this into the kitchen. Hello to you too. Kitchen? Yes, ma'am. Some traditions never changed. The townhouse was beautiful. Warm hardwood floors, cream walls, natural light everywhere, the kind of home featured in magazines under titles like Young Professionals in Love. Nia immediately regretted that thought. Fortunately, Lena appeared before she could become melancholy. There you are. Her sister hugged her tightly. Nia hugged back. Then something unexpected happened. She looked at Lena, really looked. Lena was happy, not performatively happy, not engagement party happy, genuinely happy, comfortable, loved, secure. The sight should have hurt. Instead, it brought relief. A strange, unfamiliar relief. Because for the first time, Nia wasn't looking at Marcus and wondering why he hadn't chosen her. She was looking at Lena and realizing he had chosen exactly the right woman. And Lena had chosen the right man. The puzzle pieces fit, just not in the way she'd imagined. Marcus appeared from the kitchen carrying drinks. Nia, Marcus. He smiled. The same smile, the famous smile, the smile she'd spent years romanticizing. And suddenly, nothing happened. No flutter, no ache, no impossible hope. Nothing. Marcus was handsome. Marcus was kind. Marcus was her sister's fiancé. That was all. The realization startled her, not because it hurt, because it didn't. For years, she'd believed Marcus was the love story that never happened. Now she wasn't entirely sure there had ever been a love story at all. Just a crush. A beautiful, carefully protected crush. A fantasy she'd outgrown without noticing. Nia? Marcus frowned slightly. She blinked. What? You looked surprised. Oh, she laughed softly. Just thinking. Dangerous. That's what my mother says. Marcus grinned. Across the room, Lena rolled her eyes. Please don't encourage her. The conversation moved on. Dinner happened. Family stories followed. Everything felt easy. Normal. Comfortable. And halfway through dessert, Nia realized she hadn't spent a single second wishing things were different. Later that evening, Terry called. Nia answered immediately, another troubling development. Hello? Nia Benette. His voice wrapped around her name with familiar amusement. Terry Kang. How was family dinner? She blinked. How did you know I had family dinner? A pause, then. You mentioned it Thursday. Nia frowned. I did? Yes. You remembered that? Apparently. Something warm settled inside her chest. Again. That was happening far too often. Dinner was good. Survived? Barely. Your mother? My mother. Terry laughed knowingly. The man had met Denise Bennet exactly once. It had apparently been enough. Marcus was there. The words escaped before she could stop them. Silence followed. Brief. Measured. Then, how was that? The question was careful. Too careful. Like Terry was navigating something fragile. Nia stared out her apartment window. The city lights glittered below. It was strange. Bad strange? No, she considered, then shook her head despite the fact he couldn't see it. Actually, no. What kind of strange? Nia leaned against the counter, searching for the right words. The kind where you realize you've been wrong about something for a long time. Silence again. Longer this time. What do you mean? She smiled slightly. I think I loved the idea of Marcus. The admission surprised even her. The words felt true the moment she said them. I don't think I ever really knew him. The line remained quiet. Then Terry exhaled. A small sound. Barely audible. Yet somehow meaningful. Terry? Hmm? What? Nothing. It absolutely wasn't nothing. Nia knew that much. But she let it go. For now. Later that night, Terry sat alone in his penthouse office overlooking the city. The lights of Atlanta stretched endlessly beyond the glass. Most people found the view impressive. Terry barely noticed it. His attention remained fixed on the phone resting beside him, on the conversation replaying in his mind. I think I loved the idea of Marcus. The words should not have affected him. Yet they had. Because he'd spent years watching Nia build a castle around a man who had never asked for it. Years watching her invest meaning into moments Marcus likely never remembered. Years silently wishing she could see herself through different eyes. His eyes. The dangerous thought surfaced immediately. Terry pushed it away. He'd become very skilled at that. Across the room, a framed photograph sat among several university memorabilia pieces. Fraternity events, business competitions, graduation, normal college memories. Most people looking at the photographs would have seen Terry, his friends, his achievements. Terry's gaze drifted toward a picture taken during junior year. Not because he was in it, because Nia was. She stood in the background near a campus window, focused entirely on a stack of books. She wasn't looking at the camera, had probably never known the picture existed. Terry smiled despite himself, then shook his head. Ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. A billionaire executive should not still possess a photograph because a woman happened to appear in the background. Yet here they were. He stood and crossed toward the window. Below, traffic flowed through the city like rivers of white and red light. Somewhere out there, Nia was finally beginning to let go of the story she'd carried for years. And for the first time, Terry found himself wondering whether that frightened him more than it relieved him. Because as long as Nia loved Marcus, Terry's feelings were safe. Hidden. Contained. Uncomplicated. But if she finally stopped looking backward, then sooner or later she might start looking around. And if Nia Benette ever truly looked at him, Terry wasn't entirely certain his carefully maintained boundaries would survive it. For the first time in months, that possibility kept him awake long after midnight. Terry Kang's grandmother believed three things with absolute certainty. Money should never be wasted, family should never be embarrassed, and marriage should never be left to chance. Unfortunately, Terry disagreed with at least one of those principles, possibly two. The disagreement became a problem on a Thursday morning. Terry. His grandmother's voice carried across the breakfast room before he had fully sat down. That was never a good sign. The breakfast room of the Kang estate overlooked 20 acres of carefully maintained gardens. Morning sunlight poured through tall windows. Fresh flowers sat in crystal vases. A staff member quietly poured coffee. The setting suggested peace. Chairwoman Sun Hee Kong suggested otherwise. At 78, she remained one of the most intimidating people Terry had ever met. She was barely 5 feet tall. That somehow made her more dangerous. You are avoiding me. Terry accepted his coffee. I had meetings. You own the company. I still attend meetings. You rescheduled 3 dinners. Terry took a sip. His grandmother narrowed her eyes. A tactical mistake. Nobody survived that look. You're changing the subject. I'm drinking coffee. Exactly. Terry smiled. His grandmother did not. Another tactical mistake. You are 37 years old. Still true. You are unmarried. Also true. You are becoming increasingly difficult. That one is subjective. His grandmother's expression suggested it was not. At all. She slid a cream-colored folder across the table. Terry immediately disliked it. The folder practically radiated trouble. What is that? Opportunity. Dangerous answer. Very dangerous. Terry did not touch the folder. His grandmother waited. Terry continued not touching the folder. The silence stretched. Finally. Open it. No. Open it? No. Terry? He sighed. The sigh of a man accepting defeat before battle officially began. Slowly, he opened the folder. Photographs, profiles, family backgrounds, corporate summaries. His stomach dropped. Absolutely not. No. His grandmother folded her hands. The Choi family. No. The daughter is accomplished. No. Educated. No. Beautiful. No. Wealthy. No. His grandmother stared. Terry. Grandmother. This is how these relationships begin. Not mine. Your grandfather and I were married in 1969. Successfully. Terry closed the folder. Firmly, respectfully, decisively. No. The room fell quiet. His grandmother's gaze sharpened. Most people feared that look. Terry had survived it for 37 years. Barely. Is there someone else? The question arrived casually. Far too casually. His pulse betrayed him immediately. One beat. One tiny, traitorous beat. Unfortunately, Chairwoman Kang missed very little. The silence that followed felt dangerous. Terry. He looked away. A mistake. Another mistake. A catastrophic mistake. His grandmother sat back slowly. Oh. The single word contained entirely too much understanding. Wonderful, just wonderful. Who is she? No one. His grandmother laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was terrifying. Terry? Grandmother. Who is she? He stood. Immediately, self-preservation demanded movement. I have a board meeting. You are leaving? Correct. You are avoiding the conversation. Also correct. Terry. He kissed her cheek. The maneuver had worked since childhood. Mostly. I love you. Her eyes narrowed. He retreated anyway. Because there were battles. And there were wars. This one qualified as a war. Terry sat in his office staring at the Atlanta skyline. His grandmother's folder remained unopened on his desk, exactly where he'd left it. His assistant entered, carrying paperwork, then stopped. Sir? Terry looked up. His assistant pointed. The folder. What about it? You've been glaring at it for 40 minutes. Terry looked at the folder, then at his assistant, then back at the folder. Fair observation. Destroy it. His assistant blinked. Sir? The folder. The assistant cautiously picked it up. Without reading it? Especially without reading it. The assistant nodded slowly. The expression suggested he had learned not to question unusual billionaire behavior, a valuable professional skill. His phone buzzed. The screen lit. NIA question. Terry immediately forgot the folder existed. A second message appeared. NIA, hypothetically. Terry smiled. Hypothetically was rarely hypothetical. Terry, dangerous opening. NIA, stay with me. Terry, against my better judgment. NIA, if someone accidentally sends a reply all email criticizing the CEO, Terry sat up. Interested. Very interested. Terry, go on. NIA, and the CEO is copied. Terry, excellent start. Nia. How worried should that person be? Terry. How honest was the criticism? Three dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Then, Nia. Very. Terry laughed. Alone, in his office. His assistant glanced up from across the room. Concerned. Reasonable reaction. Terry. My condolences. Nia. Helpful. Terry. What did they say? Nia. That the CEO was an overpaid motivational speaker with a parking space. Terry laughed harder. His assistant now looked genuinely alarmed. Nia, you think that's funny? Terry. I absolutely do. Nia. You're a terrible person. Terry. Possibly. Nia. The employee is hiding. Terry. Wise. Nia. The employee is me. Terry closed his eyes, still smiling. Of course it was. That evening, Nia arrived at Terry's favorite coffee shop carrying enough frustration to power a small city. She dropped into the chair opposite him. I'm considering witness protection. Terry slid a coffee toward her, prepared. Naturally. What happened? He wants to meet. Your CEO? Tomorrow. Terry winced sympathetically. Nia pointed at him. Do not laugh. I would never. The lie was transparent. Completely transparent. Nia glared. Terry's composure lasted approximately 4 seconds. Then he laughed. She threw a napkin at him. It bounced harmlessly off his shoulder. Terry looked delighted, which was annoying. You're impossible. I've heard. Repeatedly? Mostly from you. The familiar exchange settled between them comfortably. Easy, natural. Nia wrapped both hands around her coffee cup, then paused. Something felt different. Not with Terry, with herself. She'd begun measuring days by conversations, looking forward to messages, noticing things she wanted to tell him. The realization made her nervous. Because those were not friendship thoughts. At least not entirely. Dangerous. Very dangerous. Terry? His gaze lifted immediately. She studied him, the charcoal sweater, the relaxed posture, the warmth in his eyes, the way he always seemed genuinely happy to see her. The sight created an unfamiliar flutter beneath her ribs. Nia immediately ignored it. Professional avoidance, one of her strongest skills. What are you thinking about? The question surprised him. She could tell. Interesting. Terry rarely seemed surprised. For a moment, he looked toward the window, then back at her. My grandmother. Nia blinked. The answer was unexpected. That sounds serious. It usually is. Something in his tone made her smile. Should I be concerned for your safety? Potentially. Nia laughed. Then she noticed something. The humor, the ease, the affection. It all softened when he looked at her. Subtle, but present. As though some part of him relaxed in her company. The realization lingered. Uncomfortable only because she didn't know what to do with it. What did she do? Terry sighed. The dramatic sigh of a man suffering under family expectations. Nia immediately became interested. Tell me. My grandmother believes I should get married. Nia blinked, then smiled. Eventually? No. The answer came flatly, immediately, dangerously. Nia laughed. Oh, correct. How bad? Terry considered. Then, there was a folder. The words sounded ominous. What kind of folder? His expression darkened. Photographs. Nia covered her mouth. No. Yes. Oh, no. It was terrible. She laughed harder. The image was too easy to picture. Powerful billionaire heir ambushed by matchmaking grandmother. The mental image was delightful. Terry looked betrayed. Reasonable. You think this is funny? I absolutely do. Traitor. I'm sorry. She wasn't. Not remotely. Terry shook his head, then smiled. And suddenly the conversation became something else. Not romantic, not yet, but more personal, more vulnerable, more real. For a moment, neither spoke. The sounds of the cafe faded around them. Nia watched him. Terry watched her. The silence stretched. Comfortable. Then his phone buzzed. The moment broke. Terry glanced down. The smile disappeared. Only slightly. But enough. Nia noticed. Because she had started noticing him. A dangerous development. Everything okay? Terry locked the screen. Fine. The answer arrived too quickly. Nia didn't believe it. Not entirely, but she let it go, for now, because she wasn't ready to admit something to herself. The folder, the grandmother, the matchmaking, the expectation. For the first time, Terry's future had become real to her. Not billionaire Terry, not coffee Terry, not friend Terry, man Terry. A man whose life could continue without her. A man who might someday belong to someone else. The thought bothered her far more than it should have. And across the table, Terry watched her expression change. He didn't know what she was thinking, but he knew enough to recognize uncertainty when he saw it. The problem was that uncertainty worked both ways. Because while Nia was beginning to wonder where she fit into his future, Terry was beginning to fear she might not fit there at all. There at all. Thank you so much for staying with us this long. We hope you are enjoying the love story of Nia and Terry. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.